Well, hi there. I'm Michael Hausum of the Hausum Group at Vista Pacific Realty, and this is the Orange County Real Estate Marketplace Update for the week ending January 1st, 2022. Now, I'm going to do three things in this video. First thing is I'm going to do a quick, brief review of the last 2 weeks, and then we're going to take a look at the forecasts that I made last January and compare them to what actually happened. And then number three, I'm going to make some predictions and some forecasts for the upcoming 12 months. On the supply side over the last 2 weeks, active listings dropped again by 291 homes or 21%. There are 1,072 active listings for sale right now in Orange County. And for next week, at the beginning of the year, we will certainly be below 1,000 listings. The pre-COVID average is over 4 times that to begin a year. Absolutely astonishing. Now, on the demand side, for new sales, they dropped by 18% over the last 2 weeks. Because of this, expected marketing time dropped down to 20 days. That's matching the record low for the year, which was also a record low for all time. Right now in Orange County, sellers are calling all of the shots. And buyers, they're literally holding their breath, looking for a new listing to hit in their price range. And that is not going to change anytime soon. Now, before we get to the review of last year's forecast, let me just say that I'm humbly very, very glad I didn't start a hedge fund and make bets with clients' money based upon my predictions, because that would not have gone well. So, forecast number one for the year. I forecasted an extremely hot seller's market and 6 to 8% appreciation. What actually happened is that it was a white hot seller's market, and we had almost 13.5% increase in median price over the 12 months in the county. Basically, I severely underestimated how strong of a seller's market it would be, and therefore underestimated how much prices would go up. Forecast number two, 5 to 5,500 unit peak inventory. What actually happened? 2,633 listings was the high point. So last January, inventory levels were just over 2,500, and the high point for the year was only 100 units higher than that. It was just absolutely astonishing, the lack of inventory. One of the things I said in that video a year ago was that it would be a struggle for buyers to find homes. Struggle was a massive understatement. Forecast number three, a 4 to 8% increase in sales and 31,000 to 32,000 in total sales. What actually happened is it was just under 35,000 sales. That was the most sales in Orange County since 2005, but back in 2005, there was 3 times as much inventory. So the story this year on the demand side was an insatiable hunger for houses from buyers in all categories, primarily driven by incredibly low interest rates. Now, interestingly, compared to 2007, when prices were at their previous peak, they were not as affordable as they are today. Because if back then, if you looked at 2007 median price, 2007 median income, and interest rates, it was far more unaffordable to buy a house in peak 07 numbers than it would be today. And that's part of the story. Forecast number four, an interest rate rise of 0.75%. What actually happened is interest rates were only up 0.4%. So the year started at 2.66. The high point was in the spring at about 3.15, and right now rates are just over 3%. So the total delta from the low point of the year to the high point of the year was about 0.6, but right now it's only about 0.4%. That difference, even that little difference between 0.4 and the 0.75 I predicted, was a substantial amount in monthly payment for every single home buyer, which just caused the market to roar and roar and roar. Forecast number five, a great market for luxury homes, those homes priced in the top 10%, and a 5% increase in luxury sales to 5,400. What actually happened, it was an amazing market for luxury homes. Over 6,100 sales in the top 10% of price range. So the final sales numbers for the top 10% ended up being 13% higher than the 8% increase that I forecasted. It just absolutely obliterated all previous records for luxury home sales in Orange County. Over 2,500 higher than the previous record. So basically, the high-end market mirrored what was going on in the low-end market. White hot for sellers, and buyers were gobbling up everything that came on the market, and quite frankly, were willing to pay pretty much any price to get that home. So now, there's a review and a little humble pie. Let's take a look and think about what is going to be happening in 2022. So here are my forecasts on a handful of issues. Forecast number 1, severely limited inventory all year long. The peak of inventory is going to be this coming summer, around 5,000 houses. Forecast number 2, extremely strong demand from buyers starting literally from Monday, January 3rd, all the way through December at the end of the year. Price appreciation is going to end up being 8% to 10% or so. Not quite as much as we saw this past year. Forecast number 3 is the market's going to have a normal market cycle. The highest sales are going to be in the spring. The highest quantity for inventory is going to be in the summer. And then once the fall hits, supply and demand are going to drop off slowly all the way through the end of the year. Forecast number 4, there is going to be a decrease in sales numbers, about 3 to 5%, and I'm going to say we're going to be at about 33,500 sales total for the year in 2022. Remember, in 21, it was a little over 35,000 sales. Also, luxury market, there's going to be a slight drop in the quantity of sales there too. Forecast number 5, a small interest rate increase. We will see rates bouncing between 3 and at the very most 3.5% over the course of the year. So the bottom line is 2022 is going to be a lot like 2021. There's not going to be as many houses as we've had on the market historically. Interest rates, although not at the historical low, they will be very close to historical lows. And those two things are going to contribute to a white-hot seller's market and buyers oftentimes that are going to end up either A, having to pay more for the house than they ever dreamed, or B, not get a house altogether, which is sad. So, thank you for watching. Now, if you would like to talk to me further about strategies that I would suggest on selling in this market, because even as hot as it is, there's still money on the table, and my 9 strategies can help make sure that you get that money as opposed to it remaining in a buyer's pocket. And then on the other hand, if you're going to try to brave the market as a home buyer, there are 5 different strategies that I recommend that will maximize your increase of getting the house of your dreams without absolutely having to pay completely through the nose for it. You can call me at 949-413-2371. You can also email me, michael@housemgroup.com. Or if you've been watching this on YouTube, there's a little eye that's been right here above my left shoulder. If you click on that, that will take you to a website where we can set up a virtual or an in-person strategy session and we can talk further. Thank you so much for watching again, and Happy New Year.